Hi again then guys, and welcome to another installment of the Project Gotham car review series, once again to the fourth game in the franchise, with what you could strongly argue is actually one of the best all-round cars in the game, the Ferrari FXX. Of course it's a Class A vehicle, the specs are pretty high across the board except for perhaps drifting, but we'll touch on that again in the video later on, and it is of course tangentially based on the Enzo, which is already a fantastic supercar, and of course alongside the MC12 at the time, this had a Maserati counterpart if you will, which was the MC12 Corsa. Now the FXX was not a conventional race car, of course it was a track-only vehicle but not an FIA, GT1 machine or anything like that, although it would have been pretty cool to see it go up against stuff like the MC12 and the Celine S7, but this was more of an ownership experience, that kind of one-make racing series, but on a much higher level than what you'd typically see done there, such as from Renault with the Cup series and that kind of stuff, but also even more than that. From what I can recall about the FXX program, including the Evolution version, which of course is even more powerful and even faster, this was actually used for owners to have input in Ferrari's future cars. So although you can't say it for certain, you could safely assume that a lot of the feedback and the development done with the FXX program was actually instrumental to the LaFerrari, and of course the FXXK later on, itself based on the LaFerrari. Now in terms of the specs that they give this car, of course the acceleration is unsurprisingly a 10. It is a very fast car, the Enzo can already do 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds thereabouts, so of course this is going to be even quicker, it's lighter, it's way more powerful, and it's got a ton of downforce with racing slick tyres to boot, so of course it's going to be quicker. In terms of braking power, they give it a 9. I might actually go for a full 10 on this one, but it's fair enough at a 9 as well. It is very good, but at the same time, one of the reasons why I'm not too against the idea of a 9 out of 10 is because, yes, it is carrying a bit more weight than some of these cars. It's not heavy per se, but it is a lot heavier than like a Caparo or a Toyota GT1 by a good 200 to 300 kilos. So yes, that's fair enough. You've got more weight to be slowing down, and you can for sure feel that. Now in terms of the grip of the car, they give it a 9, and this is what I might take a little bit of issue with, because in conjunction with the drift score of a 4, which should mean it's a very, very grippy vehicle, I would say this car can actually bite back a lot more than you'd think. I would say that something like, for instance, the Lamborghini Murcielago RGT is more forgiving than this car is, despite the fact that you could strongly argue that the Murcielago has more close racing ties to the track than the FXX does, since the Lamborghini did actually race. So it's kind of surprising that a Lambo, which are sort of known for being a bit tail-happy and a bit challenging, is easier and more forgiving to drive at high speeds than this one is. Now of course this one is so fast and so frenetic, more so with regard to acceleration than top speed, that you would kind of want a little bit of a challenge in there. You don't want the car to be too easy to drive. At the same time though, I don't personally enjoy driving the FXX that much in Project Gotham. I think it's the kind of car that some people will absolutely love. I'm not one of them. I like the FXX, I think it's a very cool car. I do wish that the Maserati equivalent were in the game, the MC12 Corsa, but in terms of this level of machine, when you're just going all out to get the fastest car you possibly can in the game, I would much more go down the route of something like a Radical SR9, or a Caparo, or even the aforementioned Toyota GT1. And the reason why is fairly simple. All of those cars can do basically everything the FXX can do, except they're also easier. Lap after lap, they're more forgiving, they're not as twitchy, they don't catch you out anywhere near as much, whereas the FXX can be a little bit slippery. A car that's twitchy could have really good steering, very precise, really good through technical tight circuits, such as the circuit that I'm on here. Whereas sometimes, to be honest with you, the FXX feels a little bit cumbersome, despite still being twitchy, which is a weird combination to have, and part of that is due to the fact that it is heavier. Carrying those, 1150 kilos, something like that, that's a lot more weight than something like a Caparo has to deal with, and you can feel that weight shifting through the corners, and when you're trying to speed up and slow down and go in diving through corners and hairpins, you can feel the size and the weight of the car much more than for instance on a real-life racetrack such as Maranello or Imola or whatever the case may be. And the unfortunate thing for a car like the FXX is that in Project Gotham, most of the tracks are very tight and technical. But getting back to the scores, the final one of the 5 is of course that top speed. They'd give it a 10. Now, as far as real life goes, I wouldn't necessarily call this a 10 out of 10 top speed car, certainly when it's in the same category as something like an SSC Ultimate Aero. Plus, I suspect that the gearing is closer than an Enzo would be, it is more track focused, so I have no doubt that the car could have a really good top speed, but I don't think that's the way that Ferrari really set it up. And again, that is with low downforce, so if you're looking for a car that can definitely be up there with the best of them in terms of the lap times you can put down, the races you can win, well of course the FXX is one of the best in the game. But at the same time, I would say this is absolutely one of the most professional driving machines in the game for getting the best out of it. It does not do the work for you. It's certainly a lot more challenging to drive than pretty much any of the other cars that I've mentioned, even compared to something like a Gumper Apollo. And as I alluded to earlier on, you could strongly argue that it sort of inspired the modern wave of track-only developmental hypercars that so many manufacturers have ended up doing. But overall, that's it for my thoughts. Tell me yours down below. Do you like using the FXX in Project Gotham? Do you find it really good? Do you find it perhaps a bit challenging? Tell me about it down below, and of course, until next time, I will see you then. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.